Hi, everyone. It's Geoff Walker with the next episode of the WalkerTalks Podcast. And today I have a special guest with me, one of our, not a rookie anymore, but one of our agents that came out of nowhere, Carl Brunet. Welcome, Carl.
Thanks for having me.
So why don't we just jump right into that rookie comment? Why don't you tell us a little bit about where you came from before you obviously started in real estate?
So 5 years. It's 5 years in October.
That's crazy.
Time flies. Came from right before real estate. I was working for the public service. Okay. I worked for D&D and PSPC. I was part of the management for the military that were releasing, and so we would manage their pension and stuff like that. So did 10 years there. And I came in there with a mindset that I'd be there for 1 or 2 years. I come from a family that owned business, and my dad owned a retirement home. His father owned a retirement home. And coming out of college, my dad said, go get your workforce experience, and once we're ready, you'll jump in and follow the family business. And then 10 years later, that's how long I lasted.
What did your dad think of that?
He was fine. I mean, at first I was being in the mindset that I was only there for a few years. I just coasted for a little while. We called it cash for life. So you go in, you do your job, you leave, you come back the next day. And then after a little while, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll be here a little longer. So I made my way up the ladder.
Yeah.
And finished. I was managing, 20 staff and doing decent money at the time, which I thought was good. And then on the business side it didn't make sense for my dad to sell the business to me anymore, with the government implementing some stuff with you sell to your family, right? You're no longer exempted for the capital gain exemption and stuff like that. So he tried.
Yeah.
Didn't make sense anymore. And plus the industry was shifting a lot at the time. So
with the job, so 10 years working for the government, what was there, like a fire missing? Was there a fire burning? Like, what made you want to switch into, obviously a completely different industry, one of self-employment, one of, fear for a lot of real estate agents? What made you go from the perceived cash for life to, wanting to take the risk? Was it always in you?
Real estate was not always in me. I never knew, I didn't know that was my path.
Right.
In a sense, it is real estate when you're talking about owning a retirement home. You're kind of the landlord of many, many residents, right?
Right.
So it is kind of that path, but in a different sense. No, I mean, I knew I wasn't a lifer in the government. Going 9 to 5 every day, having somebody looking over your shoulder every day wasn't for me. Coming from a background where, you owned your business.
Right.
So no, 10 years, it flew by, and I still have a lot of friends that we talk to often, but it was not for me, and I don't regret the decision I made.
No, I mean, you've done phenomenally. So let's talk a little bit about, I remember when you came into our office, and, I know your dad really well. He's obviously he's my golf partner, to me, and you're such a reflection of your dad. And I mean that in, the most complimentary of ways. Your dad's a classy guy and, certainly great with people. And then you came into our office, and young Alain, which is Carl, comes in, and he's dressed the part, and, you wanted to get your real estate license, and you were sort of like, is there a place for me? Mm-hmm. And
I was in the process of doing it.
That's right. And you were a little bit concerned, like, okay, is there going to be a job here or not? Our office had gone through some serious changes. And then you joined, but like, talk a little bit about that. Like, you're, mid-30s, jumping into real estate with zero experience. Did you want to throw up? Did you want to like? How was Melissa, your wife?
Yeah, she pushed me. She pushed me like for years. Like, when are you gonna start working for your dad? When are you gonna start working for your dad? Like, you need to question and things like that. She's my wife, she's very pushy, and she wants things done, and
she's assertive, Carl. She's assertive.
Yeah, very. So anyways, and it came to the conversation with my dad, and then it's actually my dad who said, like, you guys enjoy real estate. We actually owned a few places, and he's like, you enjoy real estate, so why don't you try that? And then Melissa gave me the nod, And I actually was still working for the government and did before and after work and weekends for 8 months to get my license. And she was very good at supporting me to do that. To do it in 8 months is quite the feat.
Yeah, totally, right? Totally. And then you came in and you were ready to roll.
Ready
right?
to roll.
So let's talk a little bit about, being a real estate agent, being in your mid 30s, zero experience, working with a team where most people in the office have, decade plus experience, and you're the rookie on the block. Was there a sense of intimidation? Was there a sense of like, I'm going to catch these guys quickly? What were you thinking?
I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Right. I knew.
Do you know now?
I think
Just
so.
Joking.
It was a steep learning curve, right?
Yeah.
I remember one of the first time we went to one of our CMAs or listing appointments. It was a triplex on McLeod downtown, and we met this gentleman. And you had already talked to him a bit, and we went to see his place. And then next thing you know, we leave. He signs the documents, and then we go outside, and you just hand me the folder. And he says, "Go, boy. Welcome to the big world."
Yeah.
And that was like, I think my second listing ever.
Yeah. And you did well.
Yeah.
And you succeeded.
Well. Yeah.
But you were running blind. Let's face it. Right. But that's how you learn in real estate.
Yeah.
I mean, you end up, unfortunately, getting a couple of scratches and bruises, and, you learn the hard way, but it's a business that, you get what you put into it. Right. And I think as a compliment to you, I mean, all joking aside, to get to where you've, arrived in such short order, it doesn't go without a huge amount of sacrifice, a huge amount of learning, right? Which some people don't necessarily want to do, which is kind of ironic, but you need to learn in order to succeed. Other people just want to try to wing it, right?
Yeah.
One of the things, speaking about some of your work habits that I've always acknowledged, and, I think is one of your strongest work habits that you have, is you're disciplined, right? Like you have a habit. Yeah. Talk a little bit about some of those habits, because I know, maybe we want to talk about your BNI. And for those that don't know what a BNI is, maybe you can kind of break it down and explain it.
Yeah. So I want to be top of mind. I want to be in my little niche of a market that I have in Rockland. I know people have grown there all my life, third generation. So I wanted to.
Just one sec. Yeah. So talk about Rockland for a second, so people know. Yeah. So how many people in Rockland?
About 25,000, if you count all the little towns around.
So about 6,600 homes, 6,500 homes, small community, right? Outskirts of Ottawa, and that was where you wanted to work. That's where your family was from. I think it's important so that people don't think like Carl just landed in 1 million people in Ottawa downtown, right? Yeah. Like you've been able to carve your niche out in sort of a small community. So sorry to interrupt you, but go back to the BNI with that sort of in mind. Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that people in my community knew I was now a real estate agent. So we did a good job at advertising myself right off the bat. And then one of the first thing I did was joined a business networking group.
Right.
And at the time when I walked in, and they can only be one of each category, like one real estate agent, one accountant, and then I was competing against one of the bigger agents in Rockland, and the other one, and another agent that had 30 years plus, and they picked me over the two. So I knew right away that maybe they saw something in me.
Yeah.
And I've been there since 2018,
right.
And we've grown. We're a close knit group, and it doesn't generate all of my business, but it's a way of making myself known in the small community of Rockland.
Yeah. And I think it's an example for even real estate agents that'll watch this, right? Which is, you have a group of, how many people are in the BNI?
Right now we're 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many was it at its peak?
16.
Okay. So 10 to 16 people on a weekly or bi-weekly, right, basis. You stay top of mind.
Yeah.
You're in front of them. Yep. You're educating them. They're educating you. They're top of mind in your world. Next time you go to a client's house and they need a lawyer or an accountant or whatever service you have, right? You've got 16 people that you could refer out, right? Which is pretty neat.
Yeah.
And I think in our industry, there's so many real estate agents that think you need to have, this massive massive referral source, which the more people you know, the better it is, but you can have quality relationships and those people can obviously facilitate, even if it's 1, 2, 3 deals a year. And it helps with the residual business. But what would you say, having only been in the business for 5 years or in your 5th year, what would you say are some of your strengths? I mean, I have some thoughts, but what are some of your strengths with clients?
I like to think that I put myself in the client's shoes. So I want to put myself in their situation, how they're feeling, why are they selling and where they want to be or why they're buying, what's their situation, and really, drill down on, okay, this is what they need or this is how they need it. And I really care. Like I've seen many times where like I get emotionally like during the
You're emotional.
I'm an emotional guy. Let's just face it. But during when we negotiate, like we're negotiating, but I have like
you have empathy.
Yeah,
you have empathy. You have understanding. Not every real estate agent does.
No.
So, I mean, I know that for us as a business, when we get an opportunity where, you can go and represent our brand, represent our office, we intercept so many different personalities, so many different people. When someone calls to sell their house, I mean, their path could be going from a retirement home to, we're having our 3rd child and we need to buy a bigger house. And to me, that's one of, your solid qualities is, being understanding, putting yourself in their shoes. And then you're really, really good at, figuring out a roadmap for that client on how to get from point A to point B. Strategy
and planning ahead if you can,
good. And I think there's a lot of, consumers sometimes could think like, that there's one box and that's how their box is. Whereas I think our office, we try really hard to kind of customize the experience for the client, but you're really good at that. And that's like a natural skill set. And I mean, to me, it's a direct, it's through osmosis from your dad. That's going to be my assumption, because I know your dad really well, and your dad has that ability just to be a good listener. And, you can just tell he's focused when he's talking to you, and you have that skill too, right? And in real estate, I mean, as much as it's what we sell, right? Most of the time, the business is earned through people just trusting. And then from there, you create that game plan. So, I think you've done impressive in the 5 years. You can toot your own horn if you want. You've been Rookie of the Year.
Yep.
You've accomplished goals that some people with 10, 15 years of experience have never accomplished in number of sales.
Yep.
What did you win last year? Let's talk a little bit about a competition that we had in our office.
So last year, from November to November, Geoff sent out, or we were in a meeting and said, okay, everybody in the team, whoever brings the most leads from their own sphere and close.
Yeah. So a transaction that happens from your world. Yeah.
From November to November. A trip anywhere in the world, certain amount of money.
Yeah.
And I won.
You closed it.
I closed it.
You crushed it.
I closed it.
Yeah.
I did good. I pushed, I pushed hard. Again, in my little niche, I know a lot of people in Rockland and surroundings, and it helps. But you need to push, right? You need to.
Yeah. So for a little internal competition like that, you can't just work really hard in 1 month. You've got to work that 12-month period and have consistency, right? Yeah. And that's kind of where you ended up doing well, was just you were consistent. Some months other people sold more properties than you, but over that extended period of time, you met the goal, and you kind of blew it out of the water.
Very driven.
Yeah, very, very driven. And I'm sure Melissa, who's just assertive, not aggressive,
no.
right? Not pushy.
Not pushy.
Assertive. Is excited about taking this trip.
Yeah.
So where did you decide to go?
We are taking Mila, our daughter.
Yep.
On a Disney cruise.
Oh, that's exciting. And how old's Mila, so everyone knows?
She's 2.5.
Okay. So
going on 15.
Right. She must be excited for all the Disney characters.
She can't wait to go on the big, so she knows she's going on a big boat. There's going to be princesses, and so it's going to be pretty exciting.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Just because obviously this is a little bit of a real estate podcast, let's talk a little bit about you getting thrown in 2018 2019, 2020, the pandemic starts happening.
Yeah.
Real estate starts going crazy in Ottawa. You know, you have literally no experience going into your first year. You're learning as fast as you can, which obviously you did. But maybe for people to get a sense of what happened in the Rockland market, what did you see in terms of, you know, pricing accelerating?
Yeah.
How did buyers, sellers behave? You know, give us a little recap.
So before I joined the real estate market, Rockland was pretty stale. Like it was like lower than most markets and
Right.
year over year growth. And 2018 I joined, and it was again at the tail end of what was a pretty stale market. And then COVID hit.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that lived in the city that no longer wanted to live on top of each other. So the peripheral markets, Rockland being one of them, and all around Ottawa, got hit pretty hard with people coming in with a lot of money.
Right.
A lot of money. So we saw some pretty crazy transactions.
Right.
In that,
Like, what was a townhouse? What did it go from? Like,
it went from
ish.
low twos.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Like when I first bought my first townhouse, it was 232.
And what year was that?
2014.
And now what is that worth?
Over 5.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, and then that townhouse in the beginning of the pandemic would have been about 350.
Yeah, about that.
So-
Even less. And then
Really?
low 3s, and then just boom, 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 skyrocketed, and it went up to 6.
Right.
We saw some townhouses in the 600s.
So you would say that the lifestyle of people being able to, you know, get more property, a little bit more bang for your buck, right? Because you didn't have necessarily, like, your property values were increasing. I know there were multiple offers, but it wasn't as ballistic as it was in the city.
Yeah.
So people would just opt out and they'd say, okay, I can drive an extra 15 minutes from the east end of Ottawa, but I get way more home for my money, right? Now, since the Bank of Canada started raising interest rates, have you felt, you know, that market slow down dramatically, or is it stable? How is the market doing?
We got a period of time where it was pretty stagnant. There was not much movement, and prices were starting to go down a little bit.
Okay.
The problem now that we have is really inventory. There's still not a lot of inventory out there. So we are seeing some properties doing pretty good as long as they're well priced in today's market.
Right.
There's no more stick a needle and then hope it sticks.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, you have to be well priced right
Accurate.
off the bat. Very accurate, or else like even $5,000-$10,000, you crickets. Right? You won't get any showings, and then the sellers and why is this place selling and not mine? Things like that. Right. So you have to be pretty accurate with your list price.
I think there's always a market as long as you're positioned well, right?
Yeah. So right now in Rockland, we're seeing some pretty good stuff.
Right.
As long as it's priced according to what the market's ready to pay for it.
Do you think the low point was in the fall, or what do you?
Yeah, I would say even up until January, February, it was not a really good time to list.
Right.
Now it's
It's
gotten better. The buyer has accepted the fact that they're not going to get a 1.7%
mortgage.
It's not.
They're not going to get free money.
No.
I mean, and I think that the market needed to see the Bank of Canada stop raising interest rates, and then that's kind of rejuvenated buyers coming out of the woodwork, and slowly we're starting to see the market build.
Yeah.
And values are holding, and you know, that part of it is obviously very good. But at the same time, you know, there's some people that just decided, you know, I'm not going to sell my house. Part of the reason why there's no inventory, I'm not going to sell my house unless I get a certain amount of money. They can't get a certain amount of money, so they just decide to stay, and they maybe, you know, either defer their plan, right? So in other words, they're still going to move, but not for maybe a year. And other people are just deciding to be content, or they do a little renovation on their home and so on. I mean, we've seen that throughout
the whole pandemic.
Throughout the whole, and also throughout the whole city, right? So, I mean, on a personal level, do you want to talk a little bit about your family? Do you want to talk a little bit about the stuff you do outside of real estate?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so why don't you talk a little bit about the Chamber of Commerce, the golf tournament, some stuff like that before we get into.
So
he's a golfer, by the way.
I'm a golfer. I organize golf tournaments a lot. when I was in the government, I organized golf tournaments for our little section. I got out, buddy of mine took his life. We started doing some golf tournaments for him. We did a couple years in his honor. And then we stopped doing it right before the pandemic. And then, I'm helping out with the Chamber of Commerce in Rockland. Actually, my mom is like the go-to person for the Chamber of Commerce. She came out, she's retired she used to work for CLV Group in Ottawa.
Okay. Yep.
And now she needed some place to work. And Mel, my wife, was really involved with the Chamber of Commerce. So she said, go.
Yeah.
And now my mom wants me to be
part of it.
Part of the either chamber or golf tournament, something. So I'm gonna involve myself there.
So it's obvious that there was a lot of love between your mom and your dad for you, right?
Yeah.
That translates over to you. We see it with our clients, but we also see it with your wife, and we also see it with your daughter.
Yeah.
How important is it for you to be a dad?
Very important. I always wanted to be a dad.
Yeah.
And 2014, got testicular cancer. So it was a tough year, and the doctor said, maybe you won't be able to conceive naturally. Mel and I had been together for 1 year.
Right.
Only 1 year. And then to hear that, it was tough for her too, but she held it. She held on to me.
Yeah.
And she actually took care of me while, operations, stuff like that. Everything's good. I'm almost 10 years in, and everything's cool.
Yeah.
So,
and you've got a gift. You've got your daughter.
We got my daughter through science. I'm going to say it's through science, because in vitro is the way that Mila was born. So it was quite the experience since 2016. It took 4 years.
And I mean, as a father, you went through obviously some challenges before you were given the gift of Mila.
Yeah.
For you and Mel. And, we saw, some good days and bad days, right?
Yeah.
You're a human being, but you also carry that compassion and that empathy and those feelings, and you wear your heart on your sleeve. It is 100%. What it is,
100%.
My wife, I think that's her favorite quality of you.
Yeah.
You're just a sincere human.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I remember when, you were having Mila.
Yeah.
And I thought we were going to lose you to real estate, right? Because you just wanted to be like this dad so badly.
Yeah.
And I know today, as a real estate agent, maybe to and as a dad to other, moms and dads who are in real estate, why don't you talk a little bit about how you time manage? Because I think you are a phenomenal father and a phenomenal husband, and you fit it all in. How do you do it?
It was tough. I have a coach that helped me through it. Because at one point we were like, wow, how do we do this? And with the market we were in, where property goes on the market, buyer calls you, we need to go see this house 5 minutes ago. That's how it was. Or else we're losing it, right? So that was a very difficult time. And Mila she was born in 2020.
Yeah.
So right in the smack of it. So
you had your mom, you had your dad.
Very good support system. Yeah, very good support. And Melissa was,
of course,
very understanding. Sometimes it's like, do you really need to be on your phone right now? Well, sometimes you do, but you also learn that there are times for family and there are times for real estate. So that was a steep learning curve given the market that we were in. Right. But I have a very understanding family.
And helpful. Yeah. Totally. So, just talking a little bit about some of the other things that you do. You're a golfer, which, I think is an attraction for most of the people in our office. We all love the game of golf, and we all try to, play as good as we can. I think about your golf swing, and I think about your dad and your mom investing in you, and you've got this phenomenal golf swing. If you guys go take Carl's golf swing and you put it up against Rory McIlroy, there's comparison. And then the only difference is that Carl can take a golf ball off the first tee of a hole and hit it 300 yards with a 150-yard hook or a fade or a...
Watch out houses.
That's a true story.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell everybody about your... when you hit a house, you didn't sell it.
Yeah. That's right. We were in Arizona, Geoff and I, visiting my dad. My dad has a house in Arizona. He spends his winters there. And we're on the 15th hole, par 5.
Yeah.
Went in the back, decide to take a swing at it, and went left.
It was like a jet crashing
real quick
right into a steel door.
Yeah.
Walk up to the door. There's this massive dent.
Ding.
There's the ball sitting by a cactus
with the W logo on it. So we knew it was my ball.
Yeah. It was. Anyways, I've seen some unbelievable golf shots from you, both good and sometimes I wonder how it's even possible.
How? Me too.
Yeah.
You know, you swing the ball, you think it's going there, and you look up and it's over there.
Yeah.
It's but you know, I used to be a very good golfer. I went down to like a 2.
Yep.
And I almost qualified for the Canadian Amateur when it was held at Camelot and Rockland. After the first round, I was leading the clubhouse after the first round, and then, anyways, second round, we're not going to talk about it. But
it was humbling.
But then family and stuff like that. So slowly getting back into it, trying to get the family into it. Mel has started to play golf. We want Mila to eventually
learn to play golf.
Yeah, learn to play golf and travel while playing golf too. That's what I hope for, and hopefully Mel will follow.
Yeah, it's a sport that you can, you know, like you said, if you can do it as a couple, it's even better, right?
Yeah.
You can travel around the world and you can enjoy it and take clients out. You can
Exactly.
So much that you can do together. But so I mean, as we wrap it up, why don't we wrap it up with a couple of suggestions that you would have right now on the spot? Suggestions that you would have right now, whether, let's start with selling, just so that people can learn a little bit right now from Carl Brunet.
Selling. Suggestion is, again, preparation. We have a good stager that comes into our houses, and you definitely see the difference with a staged house and when it's not staged. And buyers shop online right now, so their first impression of your house is on photos.
Right.
So preparation, staging, and then photos are very important. You got low light or something like that. You know, you want something that stands out.
Right.
Going into a market where buyers may have a little bit more options, you want to be the one that stands out.
Right. And how about if you're, so it's that's good advice. I mean, it's like, sometimes it sounds like pretty basic, but in the end, you know, you pick up everything in a photo and a video now, right? So little details do matter. I agree with you. How about buying right now? If someone says, Carl, I'm nervous about buying in this market. Is this market going up? Is it going down? What would you say?
I think we're in a good spot right now.
Yeah.
I think for buyers, we've experienced the dip, and I think it's going to start climbing again.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
And I think over time, as long as you don't have a short-term plan, because we talk about this in our office all the time, right? If you have a short-term plan, maybe it's not the time to buy.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if you have a short-term plan in any cycle of housing, you might not want to buy.
Exactly.
Right? Because you can't time it perfectly. But real estate over the last 50 years in Ottawa has peaks and valleys, but it's always gone up.
Exactly.
Right? So, you know, to me, that's good advice, right? It's just kind of understanding and buying a good location, right?
Yeah, buying a good location and good bones. You know, little things can be fixed, but good bones on a house is important. And yeah, for sure, I think we're in a good pocket right now for buyers. More properties coming on the market, a little bit more opportunities, more options.
Right. Yeah, I see more choice slowly coming onto the market. It's painful, right? It's painful, but there is more choice for sure. And there's sometimes a little bit more motivation. Like sometimes you can get a bit better of a deal. You can actually negotiate with the seller.
We can.
Right? Is there anything that you want to add before we wrap up this episode?
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
I want to thank you. You know, you've given me, from 5 years ago to today, you've given me open wings at whatever I wanted to do. Right. You were there. You were very supportive from day one. And I'm grateful for that. Grateful for the whole team. Grateful for everybody.
Yeah.
But for you to let me into the team, not knowing who you knew a little bit of the family, but how good I could be. Yeah. And I want to thank you for that.
Well, you're very welcome, but you proved yourself, right?
Thanks.
You know, and you have proved yourself over time. And I can say that, you know, if anybody here is going to buy or sell a house with you, they're getting a great person representing them, you know, and it's not just a great realtor, it's a great person.
Yeah.
And I really mean that. You've always been a team player. You've always admitted when you're wrong. You've always admitted when you need help. You don't try to do things without, you know, consulting unless you give the best advice possible.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you have a small group, right, everybody can affect one another. And you've been, you know, that team player that, although you started with less experience, you've certainly gained the respect of everyone. You're a little bit of the jokester on the team, right? Like you like to razz Steve. I think it's just because the height differential between the two of
There's
you.
not that much. If you put myself on a chair and him on his knees, we're like pretty much the same.
You're the same height. But at the same time, I don't want to say we took a risk with you, because we've always, with the new office, tried to adhere to hiring experience, right? Because teaching someone from the beginning can be a lot of work, right? The reason that we decided to really try to, work with you was because we believed that you were completely coachable, right?
Yeah.
And, I say that you continue to show us this. I'm sure he's going to win many more competitions, whatever it is that we have, or he'll definitely put his foot down to give it a go. But yeah, so if you have any questions for Carl, if you want to know a little bit about how he sells and how he advises, you certainly can reach out to us. You can drop a question in the comments below. This is an episode of Walker Talks with Carl Brunet. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.